Brilliant, fantastic. We're going to start hearing a little bit about the story today from Paul and the next chapter in his adventure with God. He finds himself on a voyage to Rome, and pretty dramatic things happen to him. So let's start watching our video today.
Now Paul was a prisoner and was being taken to Rome. It was a long, long journey across the Mediterranean Sea. The boat that he was on was caught in a terrible storm, so bad that they couldn't even land the ship in a nearby island. The ship was badly damaged now by the storm, so they had to dump the cargo overboard, throwing off all the tackle and provisions. It was many days since they had seen either sun or stars. Wind and waves were battering the ship, and they lost all hope of rescue and didn't even want to eat. But Paul stood before them and said, "Friends, you really should have listened to me back in Crete. We could have avoided all this trouble and trial. But don't worry, from now on, things are going to change. Trust me. Even though the ship will be lost, not one person on this ship will drown. Last night, God's angel said to me, 'Don't give up, Paul. You're going to get to Rome. And everyone sailing with you is also going to make it as well.' I believe God will do exactly what he told me." On the 14th night, adrift somewhere on the Adriatic Sea, the sailors sensed that they were approaching land. They stopped the ship, throwing out 4 anchors, and prayed for daylight. With dawn about to break, Paul called everyone together and proposed breakfast. "This is the 14th day we've gone without food. None of us has felt like eating. But I urge you to eat something now. You'll need strength for the rescue ahead. You're going to come out of this without even a scratch." He broke the bread, gave thanks to God, passed it around, and they all ate heartily, 276 of them. With the meal finished and everyone full, the ship was further lightened by dumping the grain overboard. At daybreak, no one recognized the land with a nearby beach. They decided to try to cut the anchors, raise the sail, and run the ship up on the beach. But they didn't make it. Still far from shore, they hit a reef and the ship began to break up. The soldiers decided to kill the prisoners so none could escape by swimming, but the centurion guarding them determined to save Paul. He gave orders for anyone who could swim to dive in and go for it, and for the rest to grab a plank. Everyone made it to shore safely.
Fantastic, pretty dramatic story. I don't know about you, but I've never been in a shipwreck, and I expect it would be pretty scary. But amazingly, through it all, Paul knew that God was with them and God was going to rescue them, and that must have given him such hope. And now we're going to check out Dr. Luke McBain and what he's been doing recently. We're going to join him for the next stage of his adventure. So let's have a look what he's been up to today.
Hi there, Dr. Luke McBain here. Here I am, day 4 of my epic adventure. And I'm out here on the salty seas, trying to discover more about the life of Paul in the Bible. And do you know what? Being out here with the waves, with the wind, with the rain lashing down, although it's a bit better now, it reminds me of one story of Paul in Acts, where Paul is out in a terrible storm. He's sailing across the Mediterranean, going to Rome. He's under arrest and being held by a Roman centurion. His boat crashes and gets shipwrecked off the Isle of Malta. But you know what? In that moment, Paul showed incredible courage, awesome leadership. But you know what he showed more than anything? He showed his amazing faith in God. Faith that God would not only save him, but everyone else on that ship. Do you know what? God did exactly that. Every single soul was saved on that ship that day. Every person made it alive onto the island of Malta. Paul's faith in God was extraordinary, and he showed it. Things are picking up now. Let's see if I can get back to shore before things get much worse. Oh no! This is a big wave coming! It's a big wave! Oh no! Okay.
Oh my goodness, I hope Dr. Luke is all right. That was a bit dramatic, wasn't it? Gosh, he got really, really wet. I hope he's made it back to base camp because he was supposed to be speaking to us again today, but who knows what happened. Gosh, Dr. Luke, I don't suppose you've got back to base camp, have you? Are you all right?
Wow, that was wet. Oh my goodness me. In the end, I decided I needed my life jacket because it was just so bad. I was falling out of that boat. The wind and the waves were terrible. Oh, goodness me. Wow. How is everyone doing this morning? Give me a big wave if you're doing good this morning. How is everyone? Fantastic. Well, it's wonderful to be with you today, particularly now that I've just about dried off from my wonderful little swim there in the sea. Okay, so we're going to think a bit more about that story that we just heard this morning, and we're going to play a little game to help us to do that now. It's called a scavenger hunt. Now, maybe you've done this in some of your classes at school, in some of your Zoom classes. It's very simple. I'm going to give you 3 things, one at a time, and I want you to go and find them or something that represents that thing in your house. And we're going to bring it back together. Don't worry, it's not a race, so you don't have to rush around and go crazy, but try and find something that represents these 3 things. Okay, here's the first one. I want you to go and find a boat. Okay. Number 2, are we ready? Here we go. Here's number 2. I want you to find something that represents the centurion in the story, as in the guy who was holding Paul prisoner. So a centurion or a policeman or somebody who's involved with keeping force and law, that kind of thing. Okay, go try and find something. Right, last one. Okay, here we go. I want you to find something that represents swimming, because Paul did a lot of swimming once his boat had shipwrecked. So something that represents swimming. So there were 3 things in our story that were really, really important. We had Paul on a boat traveling across the Mediterranean, going towards Rome. We have the centurion who is holding Paul guard during this trip. And of course, when that ship crashes just off the Isle of Malta, they have to swim ashore to get to the island. Now, this has to be, for me, one of Paul's most epic adventures. Here in the Bible, we see this amazing story of God not only saving Paul, but everyone on that ship. And I reckon it must have been so scary. Most of those on the ship would have thought that they were going to die. But Paul shows amazing courage and awesome leadership, even though he's actually, and this is what's so crazy, he is a prisoner under Roman guard with a centurion who was likely shackled to him, guarding him with sword. Paul was the one who became a leader because of his faith in God. And he tells them to keep up their courage. He tells them that none of them will die, even though the ship will be destroyed. He tells them to eat the remaining food they had so that they would have energy to swim to shore. And through all of this, Paul shows faith in God that God would save him and every person on that ship. Now, I have an amazing story to share with you today. These are some friends of ours called Pete and Emma. And they, well, you'll hear in the story, they actually were in a very real life situation themselves, very similar to Paul. So we're going to watch this together. And I really encourage you to listen carefully to the story and listen to Pete as he tells the story and an amazing adventure that they went on themselves. So let's watch this together.
A couple of years ago, myself and my wife were backpacking in South America, and our aim was to go from the very south tip of South America, Patagonia, all the way up overland, and then to travel into Central America and just keep going northbound. But there's a part where you get between South America and Central America where the border's really dangerous, between Colombia and Panama, and it's notorious for drug smuggling, kidnappings, all that kind of stuff. It's called the Darian Gap. So in order to cross from Colombia into Panama, you really have two options. You either fly or you go by boat, because the land crossing is too dangerous. Now, we decided to go by boat, and the boat journey would take 3 days and 2 nights. It's an absolutely stunning boat journey. And the journey started really well. We got on this little catamaran. You can picture these catamarans with these two parts that go in the water, and there's this like middle bit that you have a table and all the communal area and a kitchen and things. It was a small boat designed to take about 16 people, but it was slightly overcrowded. There were 18 of us. There were also some cats, and the journey went really well. And as we were going along in the night, it was lovely. The kind of movement of the water rocked us to sleep, and then we heard this loud crashing noise, and we woke up all of a sudden, and we were pretty confused. You don't normally hear loud crashing noises in boats, so it's a little bit alarming. And we looked around, and I noticed a bit of water on the floor. It was a point that we heard the captain shouting, "Everyone, get your life jackets on," that we were like particularly alarmed. We thought, wow, something is really kicking off here.
Something has just happened to us that you think never will happen to you. We were lying in bed, it's about 3 in the morning, and we think we've hit a massive wave, and we hit a crack, and actually water starts falling into our room. It's pretty crazy.
And it was like the scene of a film. This area was filling up with water so quickly. There was just junk floating around in the water, people starting to panic. It genuinely felt like the scene of a movie. We realised that the boat was beginning to take on water and it was going to sink. And we felt very small and very alone and very lost. And I think it really hit me at that point. It's like this is a life or death situation. This is really, really scary. But what really hit me was that the people we were with, I'd not shared my faith with them. I'd not told them about Jesus. Now, as a Christian, I believe that the answer to life, the way to get to know God, is through his son Jesus. God has revealed himself decisively in Jesus Christ, and you can have a personal relationship with God through faith and get to know him deeply and intimately. If you just invite him in, he searches for a willing heart, and if you just open your heart and you accept God, then he will come rushing in. I love that parable of the lost son, where the lost son returns home, and it says that the father sees a lost son coming from a distance. And I realised I'd not shared this faith, this hope, with the people that we were travelling with. So in the dark at night, I said, guys, this is getting pretty scary, we need to pray. So as a group, we actually stood there in the dark in the sinking boat at night, and as a group we just prayed together, me and my wife and these other people, and we prayed that God would save us. We prayed out loud, and the next thing we knew is that the boat had come to rest on the reef that would hit wave had pushed this boat onto the rock and it was resting there safe and firm, and we were so thankful, we were so grateful, and we climbed onto the top of this boat. And the atmosphere changed. There was a sense of peace, a sense of calmness to the group, because we knew that we were going to be at least okay for the moment sitting on this boat. And we waited, and eventually it started getting light, and we were able to kind of assess the situation more accurately. So the boat had basically hit an offshore coral reef. The water was a few meters deep. On this reef there were clearly some very strong currents moving across the reef, and we waited and we waited, and obviously you have to kind of keep your spirits up. The time passed, and many hours later someone said, I see a boat, and we were kind of all looking around, can we see this? And then on the horizon, this tiny little fishing boat paddling towards us.
We're coming home! Did you see the boat? It just means we're coming home. Oh wow! That's
My goodness, the sense of relief was overwhelming. It was incredible seeing this little boat paddle towards us, and we just cheered and we celebrated. And actually this little boat was a tiny little fishing boat from a tribal village on a nearby island called the Kuna tribe, and they were rowing towards us, and actually they circumnavigated the reef, and they helped 4 of our people get back to their boat, took them back to the island, and they alerted the Coast Guard. And after many more hours, the Coast Guard did come. And what was really amazing is these Kuna fishermen came back, and there were more of these kind of little broken wooden boats paddling around trying to assist the military to help get us off this reef. And what really touched us and what really spoke to us is when we said thank you. We were like, guys, thank you so much, thank you for coming to find us, thank you for rescuing us. These Kuna fishermen were like, don't thank us, thank God. And they were wearing these like crosses, and it's like, wow, these guys are men of faith as well. You know, the same God that gave us peace and protection through this whole tribulation, through this whole traumatic experience, that same God is a God that they were saying, don't thank us, thank God. And they were pointing and saying, no, thank God. And that image just stayed with us, and it still stays with us. I just want to share a few brief lessons from this experience, and the first one is that God's peace has a power to sustain you. And it doesn't matter whether you're going through a full-on shipwreck or whether you're going through something that's emotionally traumatic, like you're having problems at home, maybe your family's hitting a tough patch, maybe you've got sickness in your family, maybe you've had a tough time in school, tough time in relationships with friends. All of these things, they can seem horribly stressful and scary and overwhelming. The thing I want to share with you truly is that God can bring you peace. Whatever you're facing, whatever situation you're walking through, He can walk through it with you, hold your hand, support you and sustain you. So that's the first lesson. God's peace will stay with you. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson is our value changes depending on the situation. So when we were traveling through South America, we went to great lengths to guard our valuables, our laptops, our cameras, all the stuff in that small valuables bag, because it has value. It's valuable. It makes sense to look after it. It cost us a lot of money, and it would cost a lot of money to replace. It's useful to us. But in the situation of a shipwreck, everything shifted. Our value changed completely. The fresh water became the most valuable thing. And I think it's important to remember that the things that we value and prize, it's great to have possessions, it's great to look after them, but don't overstate that. Don't kind of overestimate the value of things. Remember that the next breath of air in your body, or the next sip of water, or your next meal is valuable insofar as it supports you. And I think having this view of value and appreciating the things around us just creates such gratitude to God and thankfulness that He provides for all of our needs. We're so blessed. And the third thing I want to share with you guys today is that life with God is an adventure. If you choose to follow God, if you choose to live with Him and follow Him and commit your life to Him, life with God is an adventure. Jesus puts it this way. He says in John 10:10, the enemy comes to rob, kill and destroy, but I came to bring life in all its fullness. It really is an adventure when you trust your life with God and you commit yourself to Him and to follow Him and to follow His plans. Life with God really is an adventure. Okay, bless you guys. I'm just going to pray before I go. Father, thank you that you have a calling for each of us. Thank you that following you is an adventure. Thank you that you provide for our physical needs and that you protect us. Father, I pray that we would know your peace every day of our lives. Whatever scary situations or horrible situations we're facing, may we know your presence and your peace and your protection. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you guys.
Absolutely incredible. What an amazing story. Just like Paul being on that shipwreck, our friends just a couple of years ago, Pete and Emma, were on a boat that got shipwrecked, and their prayers to God had an amazing impact. And I love that those fishermen that came to find them also believed in God. God was with them, and God showed himself in an amazing way. And every person who was on that boat with Pete and Emma was saved, just like every person who was on the boat with Paul was saved as well. Now, I reckon that most of us in our lives probably won't go through a situation like that, where he's shipwrecked. I think it's probably pretty unlikely. But actually, in life, we go through lots of different storms, lots of different situations. And Pete was talking about those, wasn't he, in what he shared. And God, in whatever storm that we might be going through in our life, and maybe things have been difficult at school for you, and you're worried about going back to school in September. Maybe you really just don't like homework. You've fallen out with some of your friends. Maybe you're just about to go to a new school. And you're worried and scared. Maybe things are difficult at home, and maybe you're upset with your brother or your sister or even your parents. Maybe there is somebody that you know that you love who is ill and who is hurting. These are kind of the storms that we go through in life. Life is difficult. Sorry, I'm back. Sorry about that. There can be lots of things in life that we go through. But God is with us. If we believe in Jesus, we know that God can be with us in those storms of life, that he can give us peace when we start this adventure with him. What an amazing story. Well, guys, we've loved being with you this morning again. I'd really love to see you again tomorrow for our final day of epic adventures. We're gonna be thinking about, as Pete mentioned there, what our calling is, what the calling God has put on our lives. It's been wonderful to be with you. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, Luke. Thanks so much for sharing with us today. And thank you so much for that interview that we were able to see of someone who really actually experienced a shipwreck and how God was with them in that time. Absolutely amazing stuff. We're going to have a final song in a moment, but before that, I'm going to do a little craft slot. Now, I know some of you have been really busy with crafts even this morning before we met together. So if you've got anything to share, not just from yesterday, but from any of the days of crafts that you want to share with the group, please show it up to your screen now. We'd love to see what you've been up to yesterday and the previous days as well, if you want to. Oh, brilliant. Look at that. I think that's Jemima and the Fairbrothers have already been busy with their craft for today. So today we're making these special signs which say trust God. And oh, look, loads of you have been doing it. Charlotte, well done. Amazingly colourful, beautiful. I think that tree and rainbow are incredible. Well done. That is fantastic. You guys are super creative. I'm really, really impressed. Well done. So yes, for those that haven't opened your envelope for today yet, we've got these plaques that say trust God on them. It's a reminder of the story that we heard today, and just to trust God in those difficult times in life and those trials where things are really tricky, those storms of life, as Alistair and Dr. Luke were talking about. So you'll have one of these in your craft pack today that says trust God, and some paints, and you can decorate it however you like, and then hang it somewhere where you'll remember that message. So well done, everybody. Thank you for sharing your crafts. We're going to finish up today with a final song. It's the same one that we did yesterday. Be bold, be strong, for the Lord your God is with you. And just like he was with Paul in the storm and with Emma and Pete, he is with us each and every day. Let's sing together.